Today is about Scott County Deputy Sheriff Caleb Conley, his family, the men and women that wear the badge of the Scott County Sheriff's Office, his brothers and sisters in law enforcement. Today, justice has been done. I have two messages to deliver. First, I'm here to honor Deputy Caleb Kenneth Conley, his service to our Commonwealth and his service to this nation. I've had the opportunity to spend time to chat with his family, to benefit from seeing the foundation from which such a man emanated. I've had a chance to spend some time with the men and women that he served with. Had a chance to get perspectives on the courage of a son, of a dad, of a fellow deputy. Deputy Conley was a hero, and he was a tribute to that uniform that he wore, that badge that he wore. This community, this entire Commonwealth, stands with his family, stands with the Scott County Sheriff's Office in their loss, in their grief. Today, we delivered justice. Today is about the men and women that responded on the side of I-75. Kentucky is a good place, filled with good people. We saw folks that didn't know Caleb stop their vehicles on the side of that busy roadway in an attempt to render aid. Kentucky is a good place. We love the men and women that carry that badge. That was demonstrated not in words from a podium, that was demonstrated by action on that day, that terrible day in May. Second, I'm here to convey this. As long as I'm privileged to serve as Attorney General of this Commonwealth, as long as we're privileged to be served by the men and women behind me, the prosecutors, the law enforcement, the victims, advocates, if you harm a law enforcement officer, a deputy, an officer, a trooper here in our Commonwealth, we will use every tool in our legal toolkit. We will come after you with everything we have. We will bring the maximum penalty that the law allows. We will protect the men and women of law enforcement in this Commonwealth. The criminal who killed Deputy Conley will spend the rest of his natural life in the custody of the Kentucky Department of Corrections. He'll never hurt anyone again. The violent conduct that he brought to Scott, to Bracken, that he brought to Fayette, to Bourbon, the violent conduct will not be tolerated here in our Commonwealth. That was demonstrated in legal process here today in Georgetown. Finally, I'd like to applaud the team that brought us to this place today. The team of prosecutors led by an extraordinary law woman, our criminal chief in the Office of the Attorney General, Rewa Zakaria, as well as her partner, our great partner, Fayette Commonwealth's Attorney, Kimberly Baird, and her team. These are the best prosecutors in our Commonwealth. They are incredibly tough. These are incredibly tough cases. I can say without exaggeration that the men and women behind me that brought us here made Kentucky a safer place by their actions and by what occurred today. I'd also like to end on a special note. I've never led an office where I've lost one that I served with. I've never been a sheriff to lose a deputy under my command, a brother in law enforcement. But we saw some incredible leadership in crisis. That's when you measure a leader, not when things are great and not in rooms like this. You measure a leader when things are at their worst, and we saw things at their worst on that day when we lost Caleb. So I want to honor the leadership of former sheriff, now state representative, Tony Hampton, for just his extraordinary leadership for this community and on behalf of all of Kentucky law enforcement. And I want to honor our current sheriff here in Scott County, Jeremy Nettles. These are the best of the best in lawmen here in our Commonwealth. This team, the team that brought us here, did not let up. If you harm a law enforcement officer in our Commonwealth, it's this team and our colleagues that will bring justice. I pray for God to continue to assuage the grief of the family that we heard from today. I pray that God continues to come along beside you and alongside Bill, alongside your grandkids, alongside your daughter-in-law. I pray that God continues to assuage the grief of this department and all of the fine men and women who serve us in law enforcement in the Commonwealth. May God keep them safe. It's my honor to bring up Sheriff Jeremy Nettles. Again, thank you for his leadership. Thank you for his hospitality in hosting us here today. Sure. Thank you.
Well, thank you guys for being here. This couldn't have been done without the work from the Attorney General's office. Attorney General Coleman and his staff were amazing. Not only amazing through the entire process of this, but their victims advocates were amazing. Being there for the victims of all these crimes that were committed on that May Day. Justice was served today, and seeing the swift punishment that was given in court today gives us bright hope in our Commonwealth. It was a good day. With that, I would like to give former Sheriff Tony Hampton a chance to speak.
Good afternoon. The past almost 2 years has been a day at a time for all of us. First, I do want to thank the Attorney General and all of his staff for their swift work and for this not having to drag out for years and put everyone, Jolene, the family, the law enforcement family, through just more of this anguish. I want to talk about Caleb. Caleb was the brightest young man I ever knew, I ever employed. He was one of a kind. And there will never be another Caleb. But also I want to reflect on the staff here that all stood together. New sheriff, our command staff back here. We got through this. And people ask me, how do you do it? How do you get through it? You have to hold it together. For your community, for your staff, and for the family of victims. So with that being said, also thank all of you for your respect during this entire ordeal. You all were very respectful when we couldn't do interviews or when we just weren't up to it or whatever, and the support from our wonderful community. I have to also point out Eric in the back from Supporting Heroes, our chaplain, Mike Justice, who was our carpet in this. He pulled us through this. He just did. Jerry Wagner, Director of Kentucky Sheriff's Association. Thank you for all the things you pulled together, you and Eric and everybody here. So thank you all for being here and appreciate you.
We're going to hear from Fayette County's Commonwealth Attorney, Ms. Kimberly Baird, and then we'll open it up for questions.
I, too, stand with General Coleman to thank all those who worked tirelessly together to investigate and prosecute this man who caused so much pain and sorrow to our community, not just in Scott County and Fayette County, but for those that mourn him across the country, including myself. I never got the opportunity to meet him, but hearing so many stories, I recognize that that was my loss. We recognize that nothing we could have said or done would make any of this okay. For the Conley family, for David DiLeonardo, who was shot and almost killed by the defendant in Fayette County, for the McQuains, who along with David were robbed at gunpoint, or the burglary victims whose investigation and warrants led to the traffic stop and the tragic events of May the 22nd of 2023. But we hope that this plea and this sentencing today, that the families will have one less court appearance, one less court uncertainty, and just a little bit of peace and comfort to help them begin the healing process. Our thoughts and prayers will continue to be with all of the families involved.
Does anybody have any questions for the team we have here?
For whoever wants to take this, obviously Xing Sheng didn't appear in person today. Were you hoping to see him face to face? And then he had a couple interesting remarks when asked yes or no questions. Just any thoughts on how he responded to some of that?
The purpose of this press conference is for us to pause, to give thanks for the teamwork that led us here. The purpose of this is to honor Caleb Connolly. If I never hear the name Stephen Xing Chang again, if that's the last time that I articulate that, or anyone from our team articulates that, it's fine with me as Attorney General. I'd like to move on. I'm happy to address any other process questions, but I don't want to provide any more ink to the man that caused a degree of loss that brought us here.
I believe there was some talk at the beginning of this about pursuing the death penalty. Could you talk a little bit about that and what ultimately led to today's decision?
Today's decision was driven by consultation with the family. Much engagement. There could never be any daylight between us, and thanks to our phenomenal victims advocates, thanks to the courage of Caleb's family to continue to engage, to discuss over and over again the worst day of their lives, his end of watch, May 22nd, 2023. It was made in consultation with our prosecutorial team. It's made in consultation with law enforcement, with the agency responsible in all of these counties for enforcing the rule of law. This outcome ensures zero risk. There is risk always going to trial. We're not afraid of taking on that risk. We demonstrate that every day in taking cases to trial. But to minimize the trauma that this family is exposed to factor in their decisions, to ensure that the public remains protected from this individual, from this menace, for the remainder of his natural life. This is a good outcome for the Commonwealth. This is a good outcome for public safety. As the Attorney General and Chief Law Enforcement of this Commonwealth, I was pleased to sign off on this outcome and bring this before the court. This was a product of no daylight, a lot of courage from the family, and it's a good outcome for Kentucky.
Thank you.
For whoever wants to answer, everyone's been describing Caleb in this beautiful light. I feel like I know a part of him just by hearing the beautiful words that have been said throughout today. Say there's a viewer that's watching the news tonight and maybe just moved to Kentucky and has no idea about what happened, and they want to take one thing away. What is one thing you guys would want a viewer to know about Caleb?
Thank you for the opportunity. Sheriffs, would you gentlemen like to step up?
Well, the one word I would have is he was a very brave man and dedicated.
Integrity. Integrity is one word that I would use with Caleb, and hardworking. On this day in May, this is the day he wasn't supposed to be working, but he wanted to come and work and help the community. Those would be the words that I would use to describe Caleb.
I would also describe him as courageous, as I said before, and he was determined. He was determined to excel at whatever he did. He was determined to be the best father, the best son, the best nephew. He just was a very determined person to go and his job, his colleagues. He was determined to help them in any way he could.
Thank you very much for your time. You guys can check your inboxes in about 45 minutes. We'll have a breakdown on today along with a link to what you just saw in case you guys need to go back and watch something. Thank you guys very much.